And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Michelle Welch, author, psychic medium, and attorney. We will be discussing her book, Spirits Unveiled, and the variety of energetic beings around us and how to connect with them. Michelle, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Michelle and I were just talking prior to starting, and she mentioned to me that she had an NDE. Well, actually, two NDEs, but can we hear about one of them first?
Sure. So when I was about in fourth grade, and I believe it's crazy. I don't know. I need to ask my mother. She's about 87, but I believe it was fourth grade. And we went out, I'd go out to recess, and we happened to be in these like portable, I guess the school was adding on in my hometown of Longview, Texas. And it was a portable building. And I remember I was going back in for some history class, and I was running. And I fell, and my head hit a rock. Literally just like, and I'm not in a good space. And so they didn't know as much then about rushing your kids, for concussion if they've been hit in the head or anything like that. So but I was out. And my experience, I believe, what reflected what I had been taught. And now when I had another experience later that, to be perfectly candid, was about 20 years ago, which was by my own hand, my own doing, the other near-death experience, I realized that my experience was different because I had evolved. So what I experienced reflected some of my ingrained or installed beliefs. And I find that very interesting because there were two different experiences.
So you're saying what you were taught. Does that mean in the first one, maybe you saw Jesus or something religious?
Yes. Absolutely. So I did. And it was just more, I've always asked why. And I believe the reason why is we experience spirits, we experience the cosmos, we experience these things we don't know for sure. But if we have an experience, sometimes it doesn't mean you're not having the experience. It just means sometimes that what you experience or you see, when I see an angel now, it looks different than what it looked like before. So I believe the universe is great at protecting us and helping us and showing us what we can handle, at least for me, what I could handle in the way I could see the experience. Because I also think I am not saying to do anything to harm yourself or anyone else, but I do think if there is some sort of near-death experience, that there's something to learn from it. And in that learning, you're going to be more willing to learn if it's somewhat in the confines of what you already believe.
Since your second one was self-inflicted, did you have a hellish experience? So
it wasn't hellish, and I've never seen and I talked to a medium, so I talked to spirits a lot and I'm revealed a lot of things. I've never really seen such a hellish experience. It was more, the word would be more galactic. So it wasn't punishing in any way. It didn't feel like I was being punished. It just felt more connected to all. And to me, at that point, it was much easier to just say, I'm just, this is it. And that's how I felt. But of course, I thankfully didn't succeed in what I was trying to do and got help. And, but it wasn't a hellish experience, but it was, I don't want to say more evolved because I don't want to ever cut down anyone's faith or their beliefs. It just, for me, felt more vast.
When you say galactic, do you feel like you went out to the cosmos?
Absolutely. Yes.
Did you see aliens too?
Not in that experience, but I have seen aliens, and it's interesting, Jeff, because I have never, since I was young, let's put it this way, I have always believed in aliens. It's just like, well, why wouldn't you? Like, why wouldn't I know that's real? And who are we as humans to think we're the only people around and the only beings around? So there's all sorts of beings that are all around us. And so, didn't see aliens in the second, but maybe that's because I've never thought that was an issue. I really was shocked when people didn't believe in it. It's interesting. My grandfather was a preacher, and he's passed, of course, at this point. But in his Bible, out to the side, and this was old, back in the day, gospel time reunions, or whatever they're called. And I looked in his Bible, and he had where he had written about aliens.
Oh.
And isn't that interesting? And he was an Assembly God preacher, but he even believed in aliens, and which shocked me, but made me feel, as a younger, teen or preteen, made me feel so much more. Look, I'm not the only one who maybe is in a religious situation, for lack of a better word, in a certain church or something like that actually believes in this. And that's when with that grandfather, I could be a little bit more open.
I feel that NDEs for some people create cognitive changes that could be considered psychic. Do you think one of your NDEs gave you your psychic ability?
I believe that when I was in 4th grade, I might have already had the ability, because I remember things from before 4th grade where I definitely had the ability. But I think it exponentially increased my ability. For me, going out of your body experience, it seems like so many people, even stories in my book, that are extremely psychic, for lack of a better word, reclaiming that word because it's very close to faith. But those people had either an NDE or some sort of trauma. And that's a third one. I don't think it was an NDE, but I had a lot of trauma where I pulled out of my body. I had trauma where I pulled out of my body a lot. And so I find that, and I agree with you, but I find that maybe it didn't give them to me, but it certainly enhanced them.
You just mentioned something, and I want to further explore. You said psychic is another word for faith?
Yes. So in my 3rd book, I'm talking about that. I'm going to have the reader walk through. So it's not a synonym, but psychic, maybe paranormal, faith. All 3 of those are believing in something unseen, or something that you cannot prove with what we think the proof has to be, right? The scientific process or something like that. All 3 of those. So yes, I would say that.
That's fascinating. I just posted a podcast within a week by a guy who wrote The Psychic, it's The Paranormal Christian. And I don't know if you know of that book, but we were discussing that basically if you're believing in Christianity, then you're believing in the paranormal.
I could see that take on it. I mean, it is paranormal. I mean, can you prove it? And so then again, they call it faith, but you're believing in something that you're putting your faith in to believe in that you really can't prove. I can't prove to someone that I'm a psychic, that I see certain things. I can't prove to you that I see an angel, or I've seen them since before 4th grade, and wondered why everybody else didn't. Like, we're in church, we're talking about angels, and then I say there's one, and people, no, you can't say that. You can't. And I'm like, but we're singing about it. And so, it's been really interesting how that all ties together.
All right. In the beginning, I mentioned that there are a variety of energetic beings around us. Can you give us a list of the different types of beings that are there?
So I can't give a full list because that's an encyclopedia, in my opinion, because there are so many beings, but I can give some categories. I believe, I've already said, in extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call it, aliens. I also believe that there are hybrids. So I will say that I've seen it. I know that we're not alone here. There are, the book could be Aliens Amongst Us, and I'm sure somebody's probably written that book. So that's one type. I also think, and I talk about a spiritual versus soul, and I leave that to the reader, how they want to decide the difference. And that's an age-old debate, is the spirit the soul? But as far as a spiritual being, I would also say animals. And I don't like the term crossed, like they've crossed, and I'm still wondering how I'm going to deal with that. But it's, and in loved ones, actually, also. The reason I don't like the word cross, because I don't think there's a veil. And so I think the frequencies and everything, these spirits are all around us. I'll list some more because I'm not answering a question, but they're all around us. So that's why I think if we can adjust ourselves, believe a little bit and adjust our frequency to some of those, we might connect with the elementals, the fairies, which, here in Dallas, Texas, maybe a lot of people don't believe in fairies. But if you go to other parts of the world, they absolutely believe in fairies to the extent that they'll spend millions of dollars to divert a roadway, right, around a fairy bush, a hawthorn bush or tree. So that's another one. And of course, disincarnates, ghosts, for lack of a better word, they are here. And I went to New Orleans after Katrina, and I had been glued to the TV with compassion, and I really felt like some souls have lingered there. And of course, they linger in lots of places. It doesn't have to be in the cemetery or the insane asylum. And I don't, I've checked myself in for help so I don't mean insane asylum in a bad way, but what we used to call that. It doesn't have to always be those places where we can connect with disincarnates. I also talk, and I explain the difference in my book, but I think a being really can be anything. A tree can be a being. And that's something I didn't always believe, and can have a soul. So just, and also I'm trying to see what the other ones I went into my book. Angels, the four major, maybe five. When I say major, I say the most populated or the most people in their church, the religions all believe in the same one thing in common. That one thing, there's maybe more than one, but one place that they can agree is that there are angels. They just may think they do separate things, such as Gabriel announcing the birth of Christ to Mary, Elizabeth to John, or Muhammad receiving the Quran from Gabriel. So that's the same angel, but with believing different things about those angels. So I do talk a lot about angels, and that's on the list for sure of beings that I would talk about. There are also beings that are what people call the opposite of angels. You don't have, I think demon might come from a faith-based, and what I mean by a religious connotation, but there are those lower entities. Now, we call them lower entities because we have our moral compass and our social mores, our ethics, our legalities, but it starts with our moral compass. And we may believe one thing, but who am I to tell another spirit what to believe? It may not jive with humans, but why humans think they're the ones that get to decide. Now, you can decide if you want to dance a cosmic dance with a demon, but who are we to assign that's a low vibration or that's a high vibration? Now, I know that's controversial, but it's something I really believe, because if you don't want to be in the presence of it, that's fine. But I'm human and I don't have all the answers. So I'm not going to say something's really, it may feel bad to me, but who am I to decide which is the right social moray or anything for anyone else, any other type of being.
What about spirit guides?
Oh, so spirit guides, absolutely. This goes back to this when I said kind of the beings meet you where you are. Not always. I mean, they can make me jump sometimes, but so they don't always meet you where you are until you're ready maybe for more. So spirit guides, I definitely see. I think we can work with them, but I do believe sometimes they'll appear to somebody as you have a spirit guide, and you'll either think it or someone who sees will tell you there's a spirit guide with you and they look like this and they were from this century or whatever. But then other people may see a ball of energy, just no face, nothing. So to me, those spirit guides appear to us as we can handle them. I will say with spirit guides, a lot of people will tell you need to know their name to work with them. I think you need to know their frequency to work with them. Eventually, they may share their name with you, but sometimes we can't even pronounce it. So that's something that I do, deviate from what a lot of people will tell you. I think you go by how are they making you feel, and I give some warnings about that in the book.
How do you personally connect with them? Do you see them, sense them, hear them, or all of the above?
All of the above. And what I like to try to tell people is that just because I can sometimes see, and it was mainly childhood, but I still do. About 3 years ago, I saw one in the garage and it shocked me. It looked it's bigger than the garage, but as I was opening my garage door, and I actually called a friend and I said, how are you seeing angels? Or is it different? Has it changed? And she said, yes. So she sees angels, and she was with me. They had a little more alien feel to them than they used to about 3 years ago. But I do see so I'll tell people, it's with your third eye. If you see with your third eye, I feel that's more advanced. That's how we used to communicate as Lemurians. And we would, for example, and the reason I say this is so many people think, well, then that means I don't see. Yeah, you do. If you're seeing with your inner knowingness, with your mind's eye, with your third eye, to me, that's cooler, and you're potentially more connected than if you see with your physical eyes. So don't ever think, that you have to see with your physical eyes for it to be legitimate, or the person talking to you to be legitimate. That's not true at all. You can sense them, and they will communicate back with you, and you can third eye see them for sure.
Can we all connect with them? And if so, how do we do it?
Okay. And you did ask me, how do I connect? So it is the three ways, but how can we do it? First of all, I don't think I want to start to say not believe, that's not the right word, be open to the possibility of meeting a spirit guide, or I'll add another being that it's not your customary, what you think might be an ascended master or a spirit guide, and just be open to the fact. Then just start talking to them. And you can also, depends on the guide. Let's say it was a fairy guide. I go around one of the neighborhoods where my grandson lives, and they have little fairy houses in Dallas, Texas, which is really interesting. And I'll leave crystals for all the fairies. And I believe that's a way, just paying honor, not worshiping, in some cases worshiping, if that's your belief system, but just paying honor will open the door to helping you communicate with spirit guides of every kind. I know that people get frustrated because they're like, well, I don't have one. It's not that you don't have one. It may be that you should potentially just, when I say adjust your frequency, just kind of change your radio channel, station, to something a little different. And music can do that. Solfeggio frequencies can do that. That's probably the best way to adjust our frequency so we can communicate with the spirits and spirit guides.
What are solfeggio frequencies?
So I didn't know that either until I stumbled on this book, and I name it in my book, and I ordered it because it was talking about solfeggio frequencies, and then I saw there were apps for that. And I was like, because I was researching frequencies, and you guys just try this. It is so interesting. What they are is they were sounds, tones, hertz at a certain hertz, I believe is the thing in my book. And I tell you all the different ones. 111 is one of them. And I do say that might be a way to connect with angels. But the thing is that, so what are they? They were also, so there was these tones, but at some point they were banned. These tones, these frequencies were banned by a certain group that banned a lot of things, and because they felt, and literally, that you could communicate directly with the divine instead of going through other people. So they're really interesting to work with, and you can download the sounds, and it may be a sound to help you connect with an alien. It may be a sound, and it won't say that. My book will say that, but it may be a sound to help you connect with a loved one. But it's just like kind of like Om and those, but it's different in that they were banned in a certain hertz level. It's really fascinating.
It's like a one monotone sound. And perhaps it acts like white noise or something that kind of changes your frequencies and lets you perhaps focus or something? Correct.
But a lot of it's one, but a lot of the apps or the things you'll see on YouTube, they'll overlay it with other music. So I suggest getting where it's just what you said, just that tone. and just that tone. I want my anxiety to go down. So you go to the tone that, and most of the apps will tell you this, or YouTube, this one's for anxiety and it will calm you down. So I would get the ones with the tones, not with the overlay of music. I would go to the pure raw sound.
What tone gave you the most extraordinary experience, and what did you experience?
I love that question. So the tone that, and so I'm a little bit different on this one because I just said 111s for angels. I think that's very limiting. So it was 111, and I think, and I want to not say the number wrong, I think it was 496, and I just strolled to him, and I connected with not an angel. This is, warning. I connected with something much deeper in the sense of, not deeper, much more menacing in a way. Now, that doesn't mean that that's a bad frequency. It just happened to be that spirit came through with that those two that I combined. And when you get in those frequencies, a lot of people be like, I don't want that. I mean, no, Michelle, I just want the good ones. I want the light. I want the love. Well, we have polarity. We have duality. So you might experience it's a little flip. And if you get really scared, what I found for me anyway, I don't get scared as much as I did when I was young, but if someone gets really scared, and you might have had somebody on talking about this, because there's somebody I think who wrote a book about this, but that will jump you out most of the time, just like jump you out of that experience. It'll jar you out of it, even if you're listening to the music, just your fear and your non-acceptance of that frequency. Not always, but almost always. You'll just be jarred out of it. So you don't need to worry that you're going to meet something. But for me, I'm open to seeing what spirits are out there and making my decision, not being told, oh, they're low vibration, you can't work with them. No, I want to meet them. And then if I go, oh, no, I'm not dealing with that, then I choose not to deal with that. And that's why I always say to engage before you sage, because what if a spirit that was actually pretty decent walked up to you? Or Jeff, what if you knocked on my door and I just had sage right there, because I just assumed I need to sage you away. And I think people make mistakes, and I used to too, in doing that, because there might be a message for you from that particular spirit being.
Now, you said menacing, but what do you mean by that? I mean,
well, I'll say there's benevolent and malevolent,
right.
That MAL word,
Right.
malicious, not as nice. Something that was a little scary, more like, and I see lots of gargoyle energy and gargoyles I'll see, and I'm like, I even saw one. There's a big huge building in Dallas, and it's the green building. It has the green lights around it. If you see the Dallas skyline, you'll see it. Right. And again, maybe 2 years ago, I saw what looked to be almost like gargoyle beings, and I was like, do you see to my husband? And no, sitting on that big tall building, which I used to work in. And I felt like they were protecting the city. Gargoyles used to be put on churches. They're beautiful in Spain. They're put on the churches to protect from evil. And so they looked scary. So it looked menacing to me. And I felt it might be a little bit menacing or malevolent, but I did more digging and getting to know that spirit being before I just decided, nope, there's some that I don't. And I'll tell you, the one that I dealt with recently that is not going to be in my life. My husband has type 2 diabetes, and he's allowed me to talk about this. It's in the book. But this to me was probably about a year ago, and he was asleep, and I turn and I look, and there is it felt like a lady. This spirit felt like a lady. The spirit being looked like a lady, and she had like a black veil over her, and she's all in black. And speaking of Spain, she reminds me of some of the women you'll see at Spain sitting outside the churches. And she scared me. Now, I'm not saying the people outside of the churches are bad, but she kind of looked like that. She was just dressed in almost funeral attire. And I said, I asked, what are you doing? She laughed. I said, what are you doing? Because it felt like she was going to try to harm my husband, and his AC1 and his levels had been going up. And I said, no. you're going to not be in my home at all. It didn't go away. She didn't leave like that. We were talking before the show about my house. I have 3 stories. She ran up. That spirit was laughing and running up the stairs as real as if you were in my home and just laughing at me. Ha ha ha. No, you can't catch me running up the stairs. So I have continued to do work, and I feel the house is clear for now. Definitely a malevolent spirit intending to cause harm.
How do we identify the benevolent ones, the ascended masters, the guides, the angels?
Yeah. So for me, it is, first of all, what's menacing to me, again, going back to what I said before, and feels predatory to me, might not to someone else. But if, in general, if you feel threatened, I worked a lot with domestic violence with Genesis Women's Shelter since the day I believe they've opened. And and it doesn't matter, woman or female, but if you're in an abusive situation, that person will tell you can only talk to me. I'm the only person you should listen to. And they're very possessive. I equate those with how you might know that a spirit is, if you're not just already scared away, if you invite it to speak to you, if they're immediately saying, or talking you down, like, Michelle, you're just nothing. You are, as opposed to an uplifting, Michelle, we believe in you. Michelle, you can do this. Those red flags, you'll know. And I guess my next question, and probably is yours, is, but in that too far down the road, you've taken too long to figure this out, you feel it pretty quickly. And most people will, and I don't like to do a cosmic dance with somebody I think is going to intend to harm me, but even with teachers that teach, like at my store or me, I say, if anybody ever tells you, I know it all, I'm the only way, do it like me, you should run. And so that's when you would run from that type of spirit. And they reveal themselves pretty quickly on that. Pretty quickly, it'll come out that they're trying to control you because they can't help but tell you something negative where you need them. And that is not how I have experienced the other types of spirit guides to work. They're more encouraging.
Now, in the beginning, I also mentioned you're an attorney. Are you still practicing? And if so, do you incorporate your psychic ability in your practice?
So I am still licensed in the state of Texas. And the way I practice now, because I'm so busy with other things, I will practice by consulting on juries, consulting on, it's in the book, certain murder cases, I will sit in the back. I'm not the one that takes the stand because, I don't call and go, I've got a lead for you. But they know that I can do this. And so, and that's why I had to get permission in the book to talk about the one case. And I rambled off your question. Did I? What was?
I was just basically curious if you incorporated your psychic ability in practicing law.
So you asked if I still practice. So I took a little break, but I'm paying again because you have to pay a bunch of money. So I am licensed, and yes, the way I practice is I would do a pro bono case maybe for somebody, and I have helped give advice as a lawyer. It's totally separate from giving advice as a reader. I would give them advice if they were let's say they were getting evicted wrongfully or something like that. And it's really touched me, something. So it's more like that pro bono work now, but I have more time. I can work on those cases that mean a lot to me instead of civil cases where I just feel like it was just so I could make the money. So I did use them all along to pick juries. Picking juries, when I was 24, that is young to be in front of juries. In Dallas County, Texas, I was in front of juries at 24, about to turn 25. And I thought I was so smart because other people would ask me to help them pick the jury. And I realized really quickly I was getting a lot of help from my guides and things like that and channeling information. And I'm not trying to put myself down, but I was giving myself a lot of credit that really is not credit due to me. I was having help from beyond to help me pick those juries all along. And I still do. So I certainly use intuition there. I had a sportscaster interview me one time and say, isn't that cheating? Isn't that cheating that you know? And I'm like, oh, I don't know everything. If I knew everything, I wouldn't be having, I'd be running the world. But it's not cheating to use your intuition or your psychic knowingness. It's not at all. It's just levels of what people do every day where they use that, because we can all do that. And yes, we can all get in touch with spirit guides. We can all, I am special. We're all special, but I am not so special to think that not every one of the listeners can do exactly what I do. You just have to, it takes some practice. And sometimes it just doesn't come as naturally as to some as others, like, riding a skateboard. I could do it for 1 second, but I'd have to really practice to do it longer. And somebody else could hop on and they'd be great right away. It's the same thing.
Earlier, you mentioned Lemurians.
Yeah.
And what do you mean by that? Are you saying we're all Lemurians or Lemurian star seeds?
I don't think we're all Lemurians. I have a quiz in the back of my book. I am certainly test to be Lemurian. So I would count those, I put them in the extraterrestrial beings, because they're not necessarily aliens, okay? But so what I mean by that is they were a group of people, and I've seen this. I mean, literally, it's been channeled to me, and they were before Atlantis, and they were a very utopian society. If somebody tells you that they're a Lemurian, the best way to know, and Palladian too, the best way to know they're not is if they're bragging about it. If they're saying, well, I was on the Lemurian Council and this, that, and the other, I was on the Palladian, I just need you to know, I was on the Palladian Council, just so you know, and you better not, test me or whatever. That is not a sign of the Lemurians. Everyone in the society was equal in the sense of respecting one another. So do I think we're all Lemurians? No. Do I think we're all starseeds? I do.
Do you think you are a new arrival to Earth, or you've been here several lives?
It feels like I've been here a bunch. I don't think I'm a new arrival, but I don't think I'm the wisest of souls that are here either. I think I fall somewhere in between.
You also mentioned hybrids. Do you think that there are a lot of human-alien hybrids walking around the planet?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do. People are going to go, oh, there's no way. I will tell you, when I was in Vegas, we go to Vegas for market. I don't gamble. It's not a religious thing or, a judgment thing. I just don't, because I just don't want to. And so we're in Vegas and we're walking down, I guess it's kind of that main strip in Vegas where everything is there. Mm-hmm. And I said to my husband, I said, I have to get out of here. And I usually can shield from that, protect, it won't overwhelm me as much, but there were so many spirits, and not knocking Vegas. There just were, between ghosts, and I would look at people and I could see quickly that the eyes will just shift. And you guys, there are people that are famous, and I'm not trying to be the conspiracy theorist here at all. I'm not into conspiracy theories that much, or I can't figure them out. They're interesting to me, but I don't come up with them. And yes, they're here. There are hybrid beings, 100% that I know for myself that are here with us.
Are there any telltale signs
that somebody's hybrid?
Yeah.
So a couple would be, if you kind of study the different ones, and there's so many, they can't all be in the book. Okay. So, but if you study, for example, think of and when I'm saying this, I'm not talking about anything political or anything like that, but draconians, reptilians, they're here. And they think that their mission here to help us evolve. But some of them are quite militant. So if you get, it's kind of like the spirit guides I was talking about before that you don't want to mess with, or the spirit beings. If you get someone that is being quite militant with you, that doesn't mean they're a hybrid. But I intuitively know, I'll tell you another trick, and you guys try this. I can feel the energy at the nape of someone's neck. And the way I respond to it is I get really dizzy and woozy, just feeling it, because I think we all came from star seeds or descended from star seeds. But I don't know that I have a lot of, besides Lemurian energy, but my husband does. And I'm around him a lot, but I can, every now and then, I can just see a shift in their eyes, just a shift. And I have seen on 2 occasions someone completely reveal themselves to me. One was someone who taught here at my store and was very much, you needed to believe, you've got to believe me. He was very, not hanging anybody out to dry here, but it was it's exactly what I said you wouldn't want in a teacher or a spirit guide. It's like, this is the only way, and I know everything. And he had a partner, and he turned a business partner. It was a female, sweetest thing, so kind, so nice, so gracious. And I saw him turn to her and look at her, and he goes, "No," and he said it in this voice, and his face just shifted for just a second. Now, people say, well, that's a demon, or no, he just shifted. And I saw his true form really quickly. And that is a real example. And I will tell you, I will never forget that when he turned, and it was a split second. So how do you know before you get that? You study. You can look at, these are some of the vibrations. They are not vibrations, that's the wrong word. These are some of the characteristics they may have. And I think it takes some belief too, not talking yourself into it. You're usually shocked when you see someone for the first time, but it's the characteristics, Jeff, to answer. It's not just 1 or 2 things to identify them. It's more knowing their characteristics of the different beings, at least that I've encountered, and I haven't encountered all. Other people may have encountered a being that I'm completely unaware of, because I think we're so so expansive. There's so many different variations and flavors of not only humans, but the extraterrestrials that may be here purely in that form, or may have integrated and combined with our energy.
Do you think that person that worked with you and other hybrids know that they're hybrids?
Very good question. I would say I don't think they're possessed, you know what I'm saying? So I think, people may be, but I don't think that they are. I think that is their true form. So I think I'm not sure. It's a great question. I'm not sure. It's something I'm going to start asking. Do you know? Do you know what you are? It's an incredible question. And I would love to know what the listeners think about that, because I just really I should have asked. And I always say, just ask. And I haven't asked on that, so I will.
What's your opinion on quantum physics and how it intertwines with spirituality?
So this gets me really excited, because I think of, quantum physics, I don't know how many years ago, but it was kind of a fringe science in quantum mechanics, right? Still may be. And metaphysics, for lack of a better word, what we're doing, what I do at my store, is also fringe. And what I think is so cool, and I met a guy who's on one of my shows, and his name's Hakeem Oluche. This is his Yoruba name. He is now on a cooking show, you guys. It's really famous, but I haven't seen him yet. I can't remember the name of it, but everybody's told me, that guy that was on your show, he's on this cooking show. But he went to Stanford. He's got a great story himself. And he had read my first book, The Magic of Connection. And I asked him, do you agree with any of that? And he said, absolutely. The multiverse, that there are multiple universes and variations of that, and parallel universes going on at the same time. And so metaphysics and quantum physics are bringing us with entanglement theory, string theory, the all one concept, which I totally believe in, and bringing that closer together. And to me, that's just incredible. It's a beautiful thing to see. We might not agree on everything, but a lot of that, to me, is now showing that, yes, we're this great, beautiful web of all and all beings are included in that. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting times, because I don't know, 10 years ago, I'm not sure that anyone would say that's a scientist and they've taught at Stanford and went to school there would say, oh yeah, I agree with a lot of things in your book as far as that. Not everything. I'm not expecting everybody to agree with everything, and we want to think, right? But yeah, it's so interesting to hear that, and so validating of how what we're doing, however you define your metaphysics, spiritual practice. We need a better word. I don't say New Age as much, but that new thought is combining with that science. It's so fascinating to me.
You own 3 stores. I'm not sure if they're bookstores or crystal stores, but do you think that there has been a resurgence in interest in metaphysics and the supernatural?
100%, yes. I know it for a fact. So what we own are 3 stores called Soultopia in the Dallas Metroplex. And I will say in the past 2 years, the numbers of people and the demographics, and I'll tell you, have changed. And people are searching for something. And it doesn't mean you have to abandon your faith. I have people here, I'm in the Bible Belt. I have women sit across from me and say, I still want to go to church and sing in my church choir. But Michelle, I want everything your store has to offer. By the way, the store is inclusive of anything that doesn't harm anyone. Okay, so in other words, no hate, no anything like that. No anything about. I'm inclusive of all religions, all faiths, all demographics. But the demographics that have really changed is younger and male. We see so many, and we have a lot of people come in our stores, and the interest has increased, and also the numbers of the people who we're reaching. Not that I'm having an agenda to reach anyone, but the numbers of people searching and looking for something other than what they're used to has definitely increased. And not only that, I love the fact that what's interesting here is the teenagers will come in, even preteens, and they'll want to come here to the store. I'm at my store now in my office, and they'll bring their dads often. And maybe their moms, but I'm used to seeing the moms, right? And they'll bring their dads. And so I've seen just such an increase in interest in those demographics too, which I find, and all cultural flavors too have become interested. So, oh, wow, it is just, people are hungry for the information, and they're believing more. They're not being told this is anymore, buying into this is what you have to believe. They are thinking for themselves.
Is there a certain book or a certain product in your store that just flies off the shelf?
Mine? No. There are. It's funny because we always are looking at that. We study the demographics. We can see what we sold every day. And I would say right now, the things that fly off the shelf the most tend to be with anything pagan related and pagan, or if you want to use the word witchcraft, which are different, but pagan related, getting back to the earthly roots of what we did. But what flies off the shelf, and this is very interesting to me, I seriously had talked to Matthew McConaughey about this, because he said, I just see people going in stores and who's in New Orleans, and all they buy anything for money, it's empty. And I said, that too. People are wanting to manifest abundance and prosperity. So that flies, anything with that flies off the shelves. Definitely.
Interesting. Initially thinking when I hear pagan, maybe there's an interest because of Game of Thrones or something, but I don't know if they're really getting into witchcraft in that series. It's more violence and other stuff.
Dragons. Yeah. I'll be curious to see when this prequel, I believe it is, comes out. Because we sell beautiful dragon statue, maybe incense holders, whatever. And for a while, dragons were really all the rage. So I always kind of wonder, is the universal consciousness driving what shows they're making and what movies they're making to some extent? And it has to be because to some extent, because we're part of the universal consciousness, but so is it driving that they're having a show, for instance, about dragons and everyone, or is it the other way around? People have gotten an interest in dragons and then they make a show about it. And I'll tell you, my belief from hard data with what I sell is the movies often drive what people are interested in, but I still think it may be for a purpose. It's not just, commercialism. I think there's a universal consciousness to that.
Can you share about a practice on how we interact with our loved ones before they transition over so that when they do, we'll be able to connect with them?
I love that you asked that because, yes, and I really recommend everyone do this. Now, it almost is going to sound like it's something you would have the therapist would tell you to do. So it can't be that bad, but it's not that. Before, like now, tomorrow, there's a list in my book, but I'll tell you basically what they are. Ask your friends, your parents, your partners, where would we meet? Where would we meet if one of us was to pass on and different frequencies? Where would we meet? What is your favorite song? If you don't know, from a parent maybe. What is your favorite? And you get all the clairs in there, the seeing, clear seeing, clear knowing, all the clear audience, all of those. What's your favorite song? What's your favorite scent? Where would you want to meet up with me? What sign might you send me? And so you're almost making an agreement, like before one of you passes, that this is what you're going to do. And I'll tell you that I had a friend of mine, her mother was precious. I grew up with this person and her mother was always just a loving woman, and she has Alzheimer's. And the friend contacted me and she said, Michelle, it's, so sad. I just can't get her to be lucid. And sometimes, we talk about the beyond and she, is she going to see, the dad? And basically she used the list that I just kind of gave you guys, and you can make it up on your own. Just, muse, what's your favorite? What was your favorite memory you ever had? What's the best city that you lived in? What did you do there? Those questions that we should be asking anyway. And her mother became lucid. She perked up because she wasn't being told, oh, you'll be okay. This is what to expect. It's okay to let go and move on. She was having these wonderful memories and it was talking about her husband but things about herself too. Her husband had already passed. And my friend said, Michelle, everyone needs to do that list. And she said, because it was just amazing how my mother perked up and she listened and she had joy again. And she said, but I also now know those things that some of them I didn't ever take time to find out. So her mother, and I'll take it from now for me. So if I had that with my husband, I would know if one of us passed, I would look for certain things that I know are his favorite animal. What's your favorite bird? Because birds are messengers. And so I think it's a beautiful way to get to know each other better, but also prepare for how you're going to meet up in the future.
Are beings trying to contact you all the time and you have to kind of shut it down? Otherwise it'll drive you crazy?
Yes and no. They won't drive me crazy anymore, but I hope. But they can crowd me very much to where it feels when I was talking about the Vegas. I'm not picking on Vegas. It just happened to be, I was extra open, I guess, that night when we were walking. I have to set some boundaries and just say, not tonight. I'm sleeping. I'm sorry. No spirits are coming in here tonight. Not going to do it. And can you 100% manage that? I believe yes, if you remember. But a lot of times people, including me, don't remember to do that. So those spirits, yes, they crowd me. But they also make me I have a lot of compassion. I don't like people making fun of ghosts. I don't like them antagonizing spirits that are lingering here, because most of them are here because of something that was very traumatic. And so I will have the compassion but yeah, I will feel crowded sometimes, very crowded.
Do you think many spirits hang out in cemeteries?
I think they do, but I don't think that they, and I know there are practices that they believe. That's, hoodoo things that people who believe that and not maybe even faiths. But my answer to that is maybe, but they can hang out anywhere else they want to too. I think where that it has to be, it's usually a bar, or it's an old. Everybody's like old, and I'm thinking, people die all the time. People pass it, and not to be blunt, but they do. I mean, it's we have death, and we have people crossing for that word, and so yeah, I mean, it's just like it doesn't have to be a cemetery. It could be anywhere. They show up often where they were. It's not always where they died or the last things they did. They'll show up, reveal themselves to you, and show up in places where they were happy potentially. It's not always that it's this deep, dark, creepy place. It might be even more. I was in my doctor's office, and we have time for this. And I was in my doctor's office, and I told her, I said, "You've got a spirit going up and down this hall." I mean, this is my doctor. Okay, so you don't want to think your doctor. You don't want you to tell your doctor anything that's she's going to, be putting you in for help. I literally looked at her and I said, I've got to tell you, I cannot not tell you a spirit. And I believe that spirit has been in the building. I don't know how old it was, but it looks pretty modern, Dallas to me. And she later, and I think, how many appointments it was that went by, and probably a year later, maybe 6 months, she said, by the way, I thought, oh no, what are you gonna put me on? What are you gonna do? She said, by the way, I haven't, but other people have been talking about this spirit that is up and down. I said, people who come to you or people who work there? And she said, no, people who work here. And Michelle, I want you to know that you were right. There is a spirit. And I said, yes, that hall right there. And she goes, yeah. So yes. And I told her, I did tell her, you can see them too, right? It's not because I'm, all that. And she's like, I don't want to. I said, okay, that's okay. That's probably why she doesn't see them, right?
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain psychometry and connecting with places and things?
Yes. So I believe, we've got with places, we've got the spirit of the land itself, right? So things might have happened on that land. We know things happen on the land of the United States, right? Some good things, some bad things, but that land will have, it's a being. But the land may also have something on it, or something, like I said, that happened there that also is another layer to that being. And then the things, definitely things you can touch, they hold energy. And so do buildings. And the psychometry comes in with, and it's an age-old practice. I've been researching that for my next book, all the different forms of divination. And so psychometry, which is very close to clairtangency or clear touch, but holding something of, for instance, clothing even. I believe clothing holds more energy, even though people are like, well, we've washed it. No. If you got someone's wedding dress or their favorite shirt, Uncle Joe wore this shirt every Friday to go bowl, it's got energy in it. And so you hold it and you can get the energy of that place. And the same when you you can just stand on land or connect with it, maybe a tree, another being on that land, and just touching can often give you that sense. And the reason behind the psychometry, which is not new, is that the energy, when you touch it, you maybe connect more with that energy. So, and that can be used for really anything, but places and things. It doesn't always have to be used to connect with a loved one. Oftentimes people think that's the only reason you take the watch of someone to a medium, and then they can tap into that. Number one, that you don't always have to have that to tap in. Number two, psychometry could be used to give us some interesting knowledge about something that it might not even about someone who passed. It just may be a bygone era or what happened on this land.
Do you think people shouldn't buy secondhand things like clothing? And if they do, is there a way to clear the energy?
Great question. My daughter will be really messed up if I tell her she cannot go, because it's a very popular right now to wear vintage clothing. And she goes to Goodwill, she repurposes clothing, she believes in repurposing. And so the answer to your question is, I do think you should clear those things. I think whatever that clearing is for you, you could, if that is setting intention, it doesn't always have to be, some sort of. And there, by the way, there's all different kinds of sage. So you could even use pine if you don't want to use sage. And I do think you should clear. Just putting in the washing machine is not good enough. And set an intention over it. But, you might not want the energy to go out of it. But if you do, then all the various forms of clearing, ringing, playing a Solfeggio frequency, doing a singing bowl over that clears the energy. Different, and then setting the, but yes, for a lot of people, I would say, yes, I will go in those stores with my daughter and I'll be like, do you not feel this? And she's like, oh, Mom. And I'm like, I really can feel the energy. And one of the things you could practice if you're listening is, if you're open to it, is going in not only like Goodwill or old vintage stores and seeing, just prepare yourself, scan your energy before you go. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. How am I right now? This is how I am. And I do this before going into a meeting, before anything. I try to remember. So you'll know that's your check-in. Then you can walk in one of those stores, but even more interesting is a pawn shop. If the person that owns the pawn shop knows most of the things about what they have in there and knows some of the history, and you can practice, you can go in and you can just pick up an item and see what, you can connect with, and don't be afraid to be wrong. That's what is the biggest obstacle to connecting, is we just think, it's just my imagination. Just pick it up and hold it. And then ask, maybe write on an index card. These are the hits I got. It seems sad. It seems this, it seems that. And you can then ask the owner, do you know the history of this? And you could do that anywhere where they'll let you kind of hold the item. So,
all right. If somebody wanted to pick up your book, Spirits Unveiled, do they get it on Amazon or your website?
So both. Either one is equally great. You can get it on Llewellyn Books. You can get it at Soultopia. If you get it at Soultopia, I'll sign it for you if you want me to. A lot of people do. And I do a little bibliomancy for you too, which is I open you can either tell me the number, I open to a certain page and I circle it, and that's a special page for you. So it's a certain kind of divination. It can be, there's one called Dictionary Mancy too, but you can use any book, but I'll use my book, open it. And so either place would be great. And you can get it at Target and all kinds of places, but mainly Amazon, Soultopia, Llewellyn would be really easy places to pick it up.
That's great. After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions or chit chat. Are you open to that? And if so, how do they reach you?
I am open to that. I'd love to know what you think and your experiences and your opinion, and they don't have to match mine. And you reach me, it's really simple. Michelle with 2 L's, Welch with CH at the end.com, MichelleWelch.com. And I'm very open to that.
Do you have anything else you're working on that you want us to know about?
Yeah, thank you. I'm working on a lot, really busy right now. We own, we being Soultopia owns, that's my stores, but it's the umbrella company. We own 2, one in Dallas that's already passed this year, but one coming up in Portland, Oregon. And we have total probably 50 speakers on divination that weekend. It's more than 50. Counting the keynote speakers. So working on that. But I have another book coming out, and it's going to teach you how to make your own psychic playbook, how you can connect, because you may not connect with everything the way I connect. And it will help you formulate how it works for you, because it's so hard when somebody else sees, a group of people and they're all going, oh yeah, I really felt that energy, or I saw that, or what, and you're just going, not me. Yeah, I guess I'm not intuitive. Well, you are, but it's just different ways, just like different learning styles to connect. So I'm working on that book. Yeah. And then, of course, just the stores and thoughts of more stores because people are wanting to. So just a lot of things. I also have just finished, but we're putting it off. I'm due this other book. I hope it's going to be called The Psychic Playbook, and Your Psychic Playbook, for maybe that, but also a crystal deck I am working on with my husband. We've already turned that in. And another publisher has asked me, some other people have approached, but right now I've learned, one thing. You can say no to some things. And for me, I kind of need to pace myself. If I get too many things, I think probably a lot of people can relate. And I'm just being honest with myself that I can't do it all. And it gets me too stressed. So, but lots of opportunities coming our way. And I chalk that up to Soultopia too. It's just a lot of good, fun energy, and the team that works here is wonderful.
Michelle, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Oh, absolutely. Regarding connecting with spirits and connecting just with yourself, the positive message, and I could leave so many, but the positive message is that you are part of all, and you, at the same time, you are uniquely important to the all, to everything. And when you realize that, and when I realized that when I was back in my, like 20, 30 years ago, when I was more self-sabotaging, when I realized that even though I'm part of all, I am uniquely important and special. And so that's the message I would leave for everyone.
Michelle, thank you again for being my guest. I really appreciate you, and I wish you success in whatever you're doing.
Thank you so much, and likewise to you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.